All right, Awesemo, here we are. It's your old pal EMac, joined by Kyle Dvorchak as we get ready for NFL Live Before Lock. We're going a little bit early like we did last weekend because we also have the NBA Live Before Lock that will be starting promptly at 6 tonight. If you're on the East Coast, if you're on the West Coast, that will be 3 o'clock. Got a nice little five-gamer there for NBA. Lots to talk about on this show. We're going to get in with some inactives. We should get those in the next 10 minutes or so, we're guessing, and it's going to kind of be important, so we'll just do a little basic stuff to kill some time before we get that information from the news god. But we'll break down. The ones we're waiting for is we want to in fact make sure that Sammy Watkins is out, Gabriel Davis also out. Both of them are considered doubtful. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is probable, but he is still going to be a game time decision, it sounds like he will be active, but he will be sharing the workload with Darrell Williams. The key thing is, what do they do with Le'Veon Bell? If Bell's active, that makes me feel a little bit more like maybe Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not doing is great, but Bell didn't really practice this week, mostly knee swelling, and he's sort of been an afterthought, but it's kind of a mishmash here on all of this. But Kyle, how have you been? It's been 1 week since we did our show. This is going to be the last Live Before Lock nighttime island game show. I'm qualifying that because we'll do Super
a lot
Bowl
of qualifications,
coverage.
In fact.
Yeah, we're going to do we're probably going to do 2 hours talking about one Super Bowl game. I don't know that you and I will be on that because we're the night show, and that will be the main show. So
you should make mainstream betting content. Like, the Packers are 3-1 in their last 4 Monday night games when it rained and Aaron Rodgers threw at least 15 completions or something. Like, the qualifications is what makes you an elite mainstream betting content creator, and it sounds like you've got that skill set down.
Well, good. And that's a nice segue because betting is now legal in Virginia. That FanDuel launched on Thursday, and we have DraftKings just reached out to me this morning with some crazy deposit bonuses and all sorts of that. So I've got to sort through this and figure out what I want to do. But we do have a deal out there for Michigan. So anybody that's out there and is in Michigan, I'm going to drop this link into chat here, but we have the Michigan sports betting is now live. So at the Awesemo Odds Twitter handle, we have this pinned tweet here that will tell you how to get a $100% deposit match bonus from BetMGM up to $500. So that is pretty helpful. The different way it works, and you want to read the fine print on some of these. A lot of the betting ones, it's not a drip bonus. It's a playthrough like once or a playthrough twice to get those funds. So like as an example, I haven't read the fine print on the BetMGM one, but on the DraftKings one, it's a playthrough once. And you can deposit up to $10,000, and I think you get a $5,000 bonus or some tiered thing like that. So I'm like, shouldn't I just move my DFS money over into the betting and get $5,000? I think I should. So I will be doing that. But we have all sorts of betting content and stuff here at Awesemo. It's on our sister site, Awesemo Odds Shopper and Awesemo Odds. You can get to either of those if you are on the main awesemo.com page. You look up across the top of the banner and you can get to that stuff. All right. I'm sure you have a search set up here for the inactives, so I'll get one going as well. When that pops, we'll talk about that. But coming in here for the main stuff here, this should be an exciting game. Mahomes has cleared the concussion protocol. The one worry about him, Kyle and I were talking a little bit about this pre-show, is he is dealing with turf toe that may end up needing a surgery just because it won't end up healing properly. So while Mahomes never really wanted to run the ball a lot, we don't think of him as a rushing quarterback. He did average about 20 yards per rush or per game this season, 20 yards per game this season, and had a couple touchdowns. So when needed, he'll put the ball down and run, but he's very mobile in the pocket. I don't think this is going to hurt him too much from a mobility in the pocket standpoint because he's just going to be taking a couple steps side to side or forward and back. But I don't think we're going to see him run as much. That would be maybe something that goes away. But let's start off here with the Bills. So you got Josh Allen, who is going against the 12th ranked passing DVOA. However, they have the Chiefs have allowed multi-touchdown games to 8 of their last 9 quarterbacks faced. Additionally, 5 of those quarterbacks have topped 300 yards. Last week, we saw Buffalo literally abandon the run. They didn't even really run the ball. 7 running back carries for Singletary. Allen had 7 carries of his own, and I think what was it, like 2 for Yeldon, and that was it. So we know everything's going to start and probably end with Josh Allen. Now that we've heard a little bit about Patrick Mahomes, that toe issue, who is your number one guy? Because we've got about 5 different guys we can legitimately call captain or MVP in this, and I don't think it's wrong to. But let's start us off with Allen here. What did you find when you were doing your research?
Yeah, in terms of like who my number one captain would be, like I'm still hesitantly saying Mahomes, and I do think like just in terms of their like median projection, Allen's not too far behind him, especially with like I think it's reasonable to put a small downgrade on Mahomes, his rushing. That's something we saw not only like basically throughout his like NFL career, but in the playoffs last year, like he turned it to another level, and we just can't project that. Like it wouldn't be like there was the one run he had where he got a first down, and I'm gonna call it the third quarter maybe, where like he just hobbled his way after like rolling out to the near side, to like the left side of the field, camera side, and he just like hobbles and crouches down. He clearly wasn't the exact same quarterback. Is it a 10% reduction? I don't know. I can't put an exact number on it. And I think even if you did, your number would not be enough to probably knock him below anyone outside of maybe Allen. And I still side with like Vegas, like Vegas is sharp, incredibly sharp. In fact, if for some reason, like we were like had a good reason to believe that Mahomes was really not going to come into this game at anything close to healthy, he was going to be less than effective, that would show up. The Chiefs wouldn't be favored by a field goal, or I think 3.5, depending on where you find it. It's like 3.5 with juice or 3. So because they have a high total, because they're still favored, I think that should tell us most of what we need to know about Mahomes. I'm backing the Chiefs with my DFS bucks. I don't think it's like bad to go for the Bills. It's just that I'm not at least using Mahomes' injury to really downgrade him, substantially.
And that's I think a good fair comparison here. It'll be interesting to see where the field comes in on this. Again, we're still going to have another almost an hour before kickoff after we go off air, but you can get all the good stuff behind the scenes here for the Awesemo Premium. So we can check that out. We'll talk a little bit about the boom bust, the leverage score, and the top stacks tool for the Showdown slate, et cetera. But that's something that's going to be important. From the running back perspective, so Zach Moss, obviously on the injured reserve, not available. Yeldon, I think he had like 7 snaps in the last game. Singletary was like the guy. Here's the concerning parts about this. He got his first target with 3:48 remaining in the first quarter. He got his first carry with 3:07 left in the half. Yikes. That's not what we really like to see. So he is priced like an RB1, but we don't know what kind of workload it's going to be. Now, here's where I've seen some interesting straw man arguments created for all sorts of different scenarios here. So these teams faced off in week 6, and that was a game where Kansas City, it was a Monday night game. Kansas City just ran. They had like 46 carries for like 250 yards or something like that. So people were saying that's what they're going to do today. We saw last week that Buffalo intentionally kind of didn't want to mess with the front 7 of Baltimore. And they're saying, the one construction is that they're just going to turn to the run today. I don't think that's going to be the case. We have seen the Bills just happily air the ball out all season. And if we see this game turn into a bit of a track meet, which in theory it's shaping up like it could, meaning the teams it's like 2 heavyweights, one not being Conor McGregor, but sorry, he's not a heavyweight, but I had to put that one in there. But you got to remember to check out what's going on there. If they're going back and forth, you got to build for that game script. What game script are you thinking most likely?
Yeah, I generally think like I'm not deviating, at least in terms of what like my median projection would be. It would not be a massive deviation from Vegas. It looks like a high scoring game. It looks like we're going to get 2 high scoring games this fine weekend. It looks like a high scoring, roughly back and forth affair. I think maybe the only like reasonable contrarian approach to like saying this game is way different than what we should expect is maybe, like you said, like that last game, where the last game they played, at least, where the Chiefs, I mean, I think it was really that Buffalo's defense allowed them to run all over them. It wasn't even like the Chiefs were all of a sudden this great successful like mauling run blocking unit. Their running back talent didn't suddenly get better. It's like Buffalo was almost fine losing to a running attack if it meant Patrick Mahomes wasn't throwing the football. Like, honestly, that makes a decent amount of sense. I think maybe you could argue that could happen again, especially with Patrick Mahomes dealing with this injury. But I mean, it'd be weird, right? Like, that was a once in a season thing to happen. And I don't know if I'd be betting on that thing to happen once again. I think I'm much more likely to build unique lineups that are still based around the median projection of this game as a back and forth scoring affair. And I just want like maybe the touchdowns concentrate much more on the Chiefs. You get 3 Chiefs players scoring as opposed to 4 or 5 different players scoring on the Bills side. So the Bills players are all putting up 6 for 60 and 1 type of lines, where Travis Kelce goes 150 and 2 and Tyreek goes 120 and 1. Or you can play it the other way too. It's probably cheaper, honestly, to go for the Bills guys. It costs you less, so maybe you can stack them up more. I think I'm more likely just to generally build unique lineups based on high scoring than like median lineups based on a very weird projection, based on like the Bills blowing out the Chiefs or something like that, because that's not what I think is going to happen. I think I'm more suited to just trying to, like, maybe you're better off playing for the median projection but leaving a ton of salary. Better off playing the median projection but putting in a weird captain. Maybe playing a Mecole Hardman captain allows you to play all the studs, and that'll be at least sufficiently unique. It's not going to be incredibly unique, but it'll be sufficiently unique, and it will still let you play the good plays. So I think that's probably my approach, is build a unique lineup within the confines of like expecting this game to sort of go as planned.
All right. That is, it's hard because it's like the exact opposite of anything that we're looking at here in how we're going to build. And we know weird outcomes happen. They happen all the time. Let's just turn around and look at last week, where we saw Buffalo and I can't even remember who they played. Indy? Was it Indy? Was Indy the last? Was
Indy the last one that what? For
who did Buffalo play last weekend? Why am I blanking?
Yeah, it was Indy. Yeah, it was Indy.
This is. There's writing basketball and doing all this other stuff, and the hard part is now we're at a point where I've written 8 different Showdown articles about Mahomes. I've written 8 different Showdown articles about the Bills, and it's all running together because we've seen the Bills have been on, with the way they pushed a couple of those schedules, the Bills have been on as many times as the Chiefs, and the Chiefs were the number one most seen team this year in prime time. So it's just like, wait, which matchup is this? Because I have to go down so in depth on these when I write these articles. I'm gonna drop the link there into that. We got all sorts of good free stuff in front of the paywall, but one thing I did want to point out here is we've got the inactives. So do you want to read those off?
Yep, I got them in front of me. So for the Chiefs, we had Sammy Watkins. Looks like Sammy Watkins out, Le'Veon Bell out. No one else on offense. No surprises there. And then for this one was interesting. It looks like Gabriel Davis active. Kenny Stills not. They put Kenny Stills on the practice squad, and then I believe called him up. At the beginning of the playoffs, they had some injuries. Apparently, they don't need him because Gabriel Davis is, I don't want to say he's healthy. He's active. I'm not sure what we see from him, but like, he wasn't actually expected to play. If you're playing the two game main slate, he's coming in virtually unknown, I would imagine, because people didn't think he was going to play. And it's not like he was some slam dunk if he was going to play anyways. If you're like, drawing dead to some lineups, like if you didn't have, I don't know, I haven't checked the score recently. If you didn't have like MVS or something, maybe that's your pivot play is to go for a Gabriel Davis. But in terms of this slate, I'm not sure we see a ton of Gabe Davis. I have to see what his price is. I didn't expect him to play, so I don't know what his price was. But if it's kind of the same scenario, I don't think he comes in super popular. Yeah, 3,200. I don't know. That seems like a really interesting proposition for a dude who I think until week 16 or 15 was leading this team in touchdowns because Stephon Diggs scored like 4 touchdowns in his final 2 games. I have some passing interest in like the sneaky Gabe Davis.
Right. Indy was the wild card round against Buffalo. Last week it was Baltimore.
Rough. Oof.
It's all running together. It's been a long season. Yeah. When you do this, because we've done, I think I've only missed 2 weeks worth of shows. So this is like our 18th or 19th round of weekend shows. It really does add up here. So anyway, my apologies. That was neither here nor there, but someone just put it in chat and I'm like, oh goodness, that was an error on my
part. I wiped the slate clean. Like as soon as lock happens, on one of these slates, I'm like, all right, there's nothing I can do. I don't watch sometimes I do, sometimes I don't watch the game. I'm like, it's on to the next showdown slate, on to the next week. So my memory of anything that happened, like not this morning, is just dust.
Yeah, baseball is always the hardest because I read a lot of the content the night before, and then you play the game, and then all of a sudden, if you look back at the results, it feels like I've looked at the stuff 3 times, and you're like, you lose track of days and what you're doing. NFL should be a little more normal, but as I said, we've seen these teams quite a few times on this season on the shows that we're looking at. So back to the Chiefs receivers. Or leading off with them. So Stephon Diggs led the league in targets, receptions, and yards. What did he have? 8 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns, something like that.
I think it was 8.
He had quite a few touchdowns as well. In the playoffs, through his first 2 postseason games, he's got 20 targets, 14 catches, 234 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's one of the guys we can consider as the captain or MVP, and I wouldn't argue about that one. John Brown in Wild Card Weekend broke our hearts with no catches on 4 targets. Last weekend, it was Cole Beasley with 2 targets, no catches. Beasley is not on the injury report. He had been dealing, was a hip or an ankle injury, but I'm okay with them. How do you want to approach this somewhat embarrassment of riches? Everybody's appropriately priced. The one guy I kind of had my eye on for a minute there was Isaiah McKenzie, but now that we know that Gabriel Davis is active, that kind of just sets him aside. I mean, he's kind of the guy that we talk about. Sure, you can play him. I would expect 1 to 2 targets, and hey, he's the return man. So it's not going to be exciting, but we need a bargain basement guy here because I think all these guys are appropriately priced. Take us through the wide receiver core.
Yeah, I don't have any like incredible leans on which receiver it is because it's exactly as you said. Last week, Cole Beasley did it, right? You said 0, and I know the week before that, John Brown, also 0. Like, I don't think we can project either of them for 0, but they're going to be volatile. They're both playing as the like non-Stephon Diggs receiver in an offense that like, yeah, they're going to pass a lot, but are they going to pass 50 times a game? Like, no, you need that kind of volume if you're going to be a 17, 15% target share kind of guy. The only guy who gets consistent volume for the most part is going to be Stephon Diggs. And even then, like sometimes Cole Beasley is going to go out and score 100 yards and outscore him. So I think I'm probably prioritizing getting one of these guys in a lot of my lineups. That doesn't mean I have any preference between the two. Honestly, I would just take whatever like the reverse of ownership is. I just want the lower owned one. It looks like there's like almost no difference. Cole Beasley is like 5% less owned. That's a slight edge. I really think there's next to no difference, and he's cheaper. Actually, maybe there is like a bit of a difference because he's cheaper and he's going to be lower owned. Slight lean Cole Beasley. This could be just as any other showdown slate one where like the best possible lineup though is 47,600. John Brown would certainly fit in that. Slight lean Cole Beasley, I guess. Price, ownership, both slightly better.
All right. Tight ends, not much to write home about here for Buffalo. So they have gotten 8 touchdowns, but on the season, the position has seen 65 targets for 40 receptions, 444 yards on those 8 touchdowns. The touchdowns have gone 3 to Dawson Knox, 3 to Tyler Kroft, who, by the way, was only active for 6 games this year and still had 3 touchdowns. And then Lee Smith had 2. Lee Smith has 4 targets this year, but he has 2 touchdowns. So lottery ticket time here for these guys. Well, let's do some math. If they have 8 touchdowns and they have now played 18 games, it's a little worse than 50-50 that a tight end for the Bills catches a touchdown, but we don't know which one it's going to be. I can't push the chips in on that. I don't even feel, and whichever one gets it, that may be their only target of the game.
I feel maybe a little better, I guess a little better than you about Dawson Knox. Not like great about him, but like in recent weeks, it really has been just like Dawson Knox and not much of anyone else. I think the reason we have guys like Tyler Kroft or like Reggie Gilliam popping up, I think he has 1 score on the year, is because I think honestly a lot of it's because Dawson Knox was hurt in the middle of the season. Then it took him a while to get back. It's only his 2nd year, and the tight end just doesn't play a ton in this offense. So it's like just turning up volatility to the max on some of these guys when one of them is injured, and that guy wasn't going to get a ton of work anyways. I mean, you can leave Lee Smith in your player pool. I think I'd be much more willing to go to Isaiah McKenzie than I would be out of any of the non-Dawson Knox tight ends, though, especially in the upside that like Gabriel Davis is like actually pretty hurt and doesn't get to play a full complement or his full complement of snaps. I think Isaiah McKenzie is just as likely as not more likely to score than, Lee Smith, anyone outside of Dawson Knox, essentially. I think he's just probably as live for as many, if not more targets, has like that, punt return, kick return or whatever, touchdown equity, a little bit of gadget play equity. Maybe they give him a jet sweep. And at least he has the upside of also maybe just being the number 4 receiver if Gabe Davis either gets re-injured or is really just like an emergency player.
All right, so we are sponsored by No House Advantage. Let's talk about them for just a minute. They have a new twist on daily fantasy sports. It's prop betting. So for NBA, MLB, well, no MLB right now, NFL and PGA, they have contests for cash prizes, just like we're used to seeing on any other daily fantasy sports site. The difference is their contest format. So what they do is they give you a series of prop bets that you can choose from. And then from there, you construct your quote lineup by selecting however many it's required, usually between 5 and 7, depending on the size of the contest, the slate, the format, et cetera. And then from there, you rank them with confidence points. So the more confident you are, the higher up on your list you put it, the less confidence, the lower you are on your list. So it's definitely a new twist on gaming. It's a lot of fun. And the bonus, we have free NFL projections for them. So I'm going to drop that link into there. But if you just click on that link, you can go in and see exactly what I'm talking about. It'll list the over-under of X, and then it will tell you the likelihood of success based upon Alex's model. That's a byproduct of what he's doing for all the other DFS sports. The other thing that's nice is this is peer-to-peer. We're not playing the house, right? That's why they named their site No House Advantage. You're just going against other gamers, right? So it's not like the house has an edge. You're playing against everybody else that has an equal opportunity there. So you want to check that out. If you sign up with your first deposit, use the promo code Awesemo, and they will match you up to $20. Refer a friend. And once they make a cash deposit, you'll get another $5. Play your house, play your friends, not the house. No House Advantage. All right. So here's the interesting thing. On the 2-game slate, I've got about 35%, 40% Buffalo Bills defense. I don't know, just the way it shook out. So my thoughts on Showdown, however, I'm not really that interested in either of the defenses. So I said Kansas City does a pretty good job protecting their quarterback. We mentioned, Mahomes dealing with turf toe, but he's still good at throwing the ball away, no-look passes, all that sort of stuff. So he's generally not going to take sacks. So they have allowed just 2 sacks in their last 3 games. This counts the playoffs. And they have allowed multiple sacks in just 5 of 17 games. They also have 8 interceptions and 9 fumbles. That's 1 turnover per game. So I would set, I would set it at 3 for the over-under of combined sacks and turnovers. I'm not going with the half. Would you take the, because 3.5, I'd take the under, 2.5, I'd take the over. 3's the number. How confident do you feel that there'll be 3 combined sacks and turnovers, or will there be more?
3. So are you saying from just the Buffalo defense?
Just Buffalo.
Yeah, I guess I probably take the under, honestly. Like it seems like, yeah, I don't.
If I said 2.5, you would want the over, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat as you. I think you said a correct line.
So I say that because you can lose up. Know your scoring system. You can lose up to -4 points on DK, and I believe FanDuel has the same scoring as well. So know what your stuff is. But that's just one thing to think about. So now we're on to Mahomes here. So bruised brain, I don't think we say that enough. I was laughing. Laffy was bringing that up. We've seen a couple other sites picking that up. This is something that we used to, when I was way back in the day in high school, we called it the brain bruise and the brain bucket for your football helmet. It was, I don't know. So I think we need to get back to that because concussion and the concussion protocol and all this, that sounds a little safe. We saw the hit. No bueno. That was not good times, but it looks like Mahomes is back. What would you like to say about him? He's a phenomenal quarterback. He's absolutely amazing. He's arguably redefining the position at the same time Lamar Jackson is redefining the position in a slightly different way. He's phenomenal. We've already seen him as an MVP. By the way, lest we forget, Kansas City Chiefs defending Super Bowl champions. I can't sell him anymore. He's literally just amazing. How do you want to approach your lineups with him?
Yeah, I think you probably have to make I think you kind of have to make the decision between which quarterback do you want to play. And I think that always ends up falling to Mahomes for me, just because, I mean, like you said, you don't need to sell him. He finished first in the NFL in passing yards per game at, I believe, 310. And the closest was, I think, Deshaun at just over 300, then Brady at 286. Like, he was averaging 25 yards per game more than the next closest quarterback. I believe he was roughly on pace for another 5,000 yard season had he ended up playing that final week 17 game. So he's obviously maybe not the best fantasy quarterback, but at least tied for the best top 3 fantasy quarterback, and his team is projected to score more points than the Bills. So I do think that I would be opting for, if you make me choose between one of the two, I'm opting for my Chiefs heavy lineups over the Bills heavy lineups. And that typically means I'm going to be getting more Mahomes than I will be Allen. I mean, if you can make both work, and in tournaments you can make both work in unique lineups, go for it. I don't know if you really can, though, because it seems like you'd be foregoing some of the top Chiefs options. And then what are you projecting Mahomes to throw 303, but then throw 2 to Mecole and 1 to DeMarcus? I mean, it's possible, but I think you're more likely better off taking a quarterback, taking their top pass catcher, and fading the other quarterback. For me, that's Mahomes plus combinations. I'll have multiple lineups, and I'll have combinations of Kelsey or Hill, and probably not end up getting to much Allen in those types of lineups.
Yeah, you're right. It's like you're going to end up building onslaughts one way or the other. Meaning 4-2s going either direction feels like a more likely outcome than anything else, in my opinion. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire is active. Okay, well, that's awesome. He's also going to be apparently sharing the workload in some fashion with Darrell Williams. We know that Le'Veon Bell is inactive, so I guess that bodes a little bit better for Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I am leaning towards Darrell Williams. Full stop. I have him in my cash lineup for the 2-game slate. I've got enough money to flip it over to Clyde Edwards-Helaire if I would like to. I just don't know what to do. We've seen too many times where Andy Reid has turned to one of his veterans, somebody he trusts in these type of situations. We know that while Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been outstanding at running the ball, he doesn't get very many targets. That's just really not a style of the Kansas City offense at this point in time. He's capable of it, but we just haven't really seen it. And he's played twice in the last 6 or 7 weeks now. For a rookie, that's an awful lot of downtime, right? So I'm coming in. My goal will be to be at half whatever the field is of him, but I would like to be double whatever Darrell Williams is. And that's where I'm looking for a lot of my leverage. Because I think most of the other positions we're going to talk about, it's Mahomes and Allen, tie, Diggs, Kelsey, and Hill, tie, right? So you're going to get these different combinations of stuff. I need to find some way where I can be really different from the field. And I think this is the spot I'm going to go to. How do you want to approach the Kansas City running back?
Yeah, maybe in a similar way, I'm getting different here. I don't know if I'm going to be playing much of any of either of these guys. Just given what we know about both of these teams is that both of them are going to, given even close to a neutral script, opt to pass the ball way more than almost any other teams will be doing in a neutral script. And it doesn't seem like this is a game that gets out of hand in either direction. I think maybe I have a more slight lean towards Clyde Edwards-Helaire getting more work than you do, but his ownership seems like people are rather confident in that. He's right now ballpark about 8% higher owned than Darrell Williams, as I pulled our ownership up just before the show started. I would say maybe that even would have jumped a little more since he got actually made active. So
yeah, we got an update 7 minutes ago. So on DK, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a combined 30%, 5 captain, 25 in the field, and Williams is 16% combined, 1% captain, 16% in the field.
Yeah, I think at those ownerships, man, Darrell Williams captain would be really cheeky. It gets you probably able to play more of the studs, and really he just needs a good rushing game on the ground and a score. He doesn't need to go berserk because of his price. I think if you wanted to get weird, I actually think that's probably like plus EV. I just think the roster construction it gives you probably end up playing for a little bit more of a Chiefs heavy script than I initially thought would than I'm projecting. But I do think because of his price and because of that like non-existent ownership, like what if he just does come out? And like you said, what if, we see him get that like Damian Williams treatment from last year where like the veteran guy who I don't think we even like, I wouldn't argue Damian Williams was incredibly talented. It was just, he was able to do all the right things. And Andy Reid said like, let's give him the ball a lot. Maybe that happens for Darrell Williams and he's coming in virtually unowned at captain. Interesting. I don't know if I'd be playing a ton of it, but I do think there's a little bit of intrigue there. At the flex, I'm not too awfully concerned with getting either of these guys in my lineups, but for me, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, because of his ownership, is clearly odd man out. I even probably am more bullish on projecting him to get more of the work than you are, but it still doesn't give me too much intrigue because I'm saying I think he actually has more of like a 55 to 60% share of the pie. It's not like a credible pie to target. The team doesn't want to run the football. They're much better at passing than any other team in the league. I'm targeting their passing game, and if Darrell Williams ends up being low owned, he's a good leverage point. So I kind of roundabout away agree with what you said.
Yeah, and hey, sometimes this works, sometimes this doesn't. We have limits of decision points and options. Last night, I went half the field of DeMarcus Cousins. Crushed me. Took it in the teeth. That's fine. Other times, I'll do something like that, and I'll be okay with it. I went 90% Conor McGregor. Oops. He lost, so I was 50% above where the field was, or 30%. I forget where he ended up landing. And then somehow I made it all back with hockey, so I had a slightly profitable day. Lots of sports, lots of slates, small entry fee contests, lots of lineups. You can help control your variance, which is what I'm trying to do here. And if you have one or two really nice moments in each sports season, or even I would think, if I probably every other month have like a $700 or $1,000 profitable slate in something. And at the end of the year, you turn around and you're like, whoa, I just made $10,000. I just made $15,000 playing fantasy sports. Wow, that's pretty cool. But you gotta just steady as she goes and be ready to take some of these lumps here. This is where I've chosen to plant my flag. Is the no CEH.
Were we playing Winnipeg last night?
I had a lot of Boston, I think.
Boston went off too.
Patrice Bergeron and Marshall.
Bergeron,
I think.
nuts. Yeah.
Were my key guys. But yes, it was pretty good. All right, looking at the receivers, there sure are a lot of them because we really need to count Mr. Kelsey in all of this. So Watkins is inactive. That means that Mecole Hardman, Demarcus Robinson, and Byron Pringle are all in play. We know that Tyreek Hill is amazing. He will operate. I saw this was from somebody else's article, and I didn't want to quote it because I didn't go and verify it, but I think he was doing, I thought the number that sticks in my head was he was running 63% of his plays out of the slot. That seemed a little bit high for me, but I didn't know for sure. And I didn't have a chance to go double check that, but let's just say he runs half of his stuff out of the slot. That means, he can move around and get some different matchups. That's helpful. And then you got Travis Kelce, who was second in the league, not among tight ends, but in the league behind Stephon Diggs with the 1,416 yards, all-time record there. He was sixth with 145 targets, fifth with 105 receptions, and he had 11 receiving touchdowns. Wow. If we toss out week 17, the rest of the Kansas City Chiefs tight ends, 15 targets for the year. They had, I forget who it was, create a player. I forget, it was Yeldon.
Nick Kaiser, Deion Yeldon.
Like six. Six. It was one of those which are just like, okay, if I take that number out, this gets really small. So a lot of options here. Do you have a favorite? For me, it's Kelsey, but position doesn't matter on Showdown. I still think people are hesitant to go to the tight end, which is why I wanted to show you. He was basically a top 5 receiver this year.
Yeah, I have no problem playing either of Kelsey or Tyreek Hill at captain, at flex. I'll probably end up, I know I'm going to end up being over the field on both of them because I'm just playing a lot of Chiefs. It's also, as it would have it, it's also my strategy on the main slate. So if we can get this game to stop scoring as much right now, that'd be ideal. If Rodgers could not throw.
I was watching my winnings go, it's like I had a hole to climb out of with this second game here.
Yeah. But, I think the Chiefs offense maybe has a history of putting up big performances. So I'll be riding them once again. I mean, maybe I give a slight lean towards Travis Kelce. I really don't think the difference between him and Tyreek Hill is massive, though. I'll be playing both of them a lot at captain. I think it's like you said. Like, what am I going to tell you that you don't already know? Kelce, as you said, top overall receiving yards season by a tight end ever. He had the top 5 receptions, and this is all while not playing Week 17. Tyreek Hill had like one of the greatest fantasy performances ever in a single game. I don't know, somewhere in the middle of the season. Both of these guys have incredible upside. I'm playing a lot of both of them. I agree with what you said earlier. Your pivot points are not going to come at the highest end outside of which team you choose to play. I think your pivot points come in when you look at someone like Hardman, Robinson, Pringle, unless you choose like maybe play one of them at captain, which I think Mecole Hardman, like sneaky viable captain. I do think it's not going to go completely unowned though. It's probably in the ballpark of efficient ownership. And the only real reason I would consider playing him at captain is because he's so cheap relative to, I think, his potential role. Last week, he was 3rd on the team in routes run. I would assume he was 3rd on the team in targets as well. At least he was number 2 among the actual wide receivers. I think playing, some mix of your Hardmans, Robinsons, even Pringle to an extent, although his ownership is up at I see it at around 10%. I think playing a mix of these guys specifically, like if you're playing them over John Brown, Cole Beasley, that's where you're going to get different. It's like pivoting down from John Brown and just like jamming in that 5th Kansas City Chief. Like I said, slight lean, I guess, towards Travis Kelce, but I don't really have a strong preference. Something that's like Kelce, Mahomes, Hardman, and Robinson, or Hardman and Pringle, where you end up fading, just like full fading Buffalo, essentially. I think that's how you're going to build leverage into your lineups on this slate, because like everyone knows who the top guys are. Everyone knows how good they are. It's hard to get like unique on that aspect of your game.
Yep. So here, I see someone asking about FanDuel. So let's talk about their construction for just a minute here. So the 3 guys I really, really want to have are both quarterbacks and Travis Kelce. Okay. So that leaves me 2 spots, and that's going to leave me $7,000 even. Now, here's where you've got to start making some decisions, because if you take Mecole Hardman, you still have $7,000. Now the next viable option is going to be probably Byron Pringle at $5,500. And now you've got $1,500 left. That's totally fine. People aren't going to want to leave $1,500. Now, if you're playing 3-mans, 20-mans, 100-mans, I would probably then look and see, who do I want to change? Let's look at what we can get from Mecole Hardman. So all of a sudden now, if I choose Pringle over Hardman and accept that Hardman's probably going to have double the opportunities that Pringle will have, but there's no guarantee of what those are going to be. Now we can start to look and be a little bit different. We could take Demarcus Robinson, who I think is going to be about equal to Hardman with Watkins out, and that leaves $500 on the table. You could max out your salary cap. You could go with either kicker or Darrell Williams. So that's kind of the pivot points you have. But the 3 people I would want would be Mahomes, Allen, and Kelce. Mahomes and Allen we don't talk about. Kelce I want because I think maybe less people go that route, because he's the tight end, and this makes a weird construction unless you're willing to go to Pringle if you do that, because I think more people would talk themselves into going down to John Brown for $10,000 instead of Kelce, or potentially doing a double skimp somewhere and going with Tyreek Hill, but that's $1,000 more. I don't know how many people will land on Kelce. So I wanted to give some FanDuel context there. And anything you want to add for that? Is that kind of the core 3 you would look at on FanDuel with the half PPR?
Yeah, I think you could probably just as easily make the argument for Tyreek Hill over Travis Kelce. Our ownership between them is, within 5% of each other. It's like essentially overlapping. And Tyreek Hill, maybe, I know on the season he did, not sure if like his expected points or red zone usage would quite bear this out, but Tyreek Hill did, I believe, score more than Travis Kelce. So maybe some argument based on FanDuel scoring that his overall touchdown potential kind of outweighs Travis Kelce's. Like you think the tight end maybe is the red zone weapon, and Tyreek Hill is sort of is the non-touchdown scorer, but the volume guy. It's almost reversed. Travis Kelce is the guy who maybe doesn't score quite as many touchdowns because he's not running 30 yards downfield on a Mahomes offense, but he's probably going to rack up more receptions. So it's kind of reversed because of that. Maybe on FanDuel, I give a slight lean towards Tyreek Hill, but absolutely, I have the same general group as you. And in terms of, unless you're playing in the largest tournaments, like our top stacks tool for FanDuel has like such a clear advantage in playing either of the quarterbacks. There's really there's almost no discernible edge in playing anyone else in terms of just that individual player's odds of being the top scorer versus their ownership in the MVP. Because of that, I think I'd probably just especially focus on building unique lineups with a Patrick Mahomes, like leaving massive amounts of salary on the table, playing these like weird players, even if you can get up to Mecole Hardman. What if Byron Pringle catches a touchdown? So leave that extra salary, like you said, sacrifice the opportunities for just building a unique lineup is probably how I'd approach it, playing quarterbacks and getting different elsewhere. Whereas on DraftKings, I'm probably significantly more comfortable fading quarterbacks at captain specifically.
Yeah. So we're going to go about 12 more minutes here. Then we're going to go off air. And then at top of the hour, you're going to get the NBA Live Before Lock with Josh Engelman and Eric Lindquist. So if you guys start to have a few questions, go ahead and throw those in chat. We'll talk about them. Just to, it's not money time because I don't have a money hat like apparently everybody else does at Awesemo. But I will say to point out what see some of the behind the scenes stuff here, what Kyle was saying. So the likelihood of Mahomes being the top scorer on the slate is 32%. The likelihood of Josh Allen being 33%. The next best is Stephon Diggs at 13%. Then it's Kelsey at 6%. Tyreek Hill at 5%, John Brown comes in at 2%, Clyde Edwards-Helaire comes in at 2%. So you can see everything's really concentrated. So that's why those are my core 2 guys on FanDuel. I'm not doing really DK cash tonight, so I haven't built my DK lineup yet, but let's look at that real quick here, what I would be looking to do, because I will hand build out one main lineup. Here was my placeholder. Now I wrote this as I was doing the article, and we didn't know what was up with Watkins. We didn't know what was up with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, et cetera. I went Mahomes and captain. I may tweak that to Josh Allen. I have John Brown, Mecole Hardman, and both kickers. I still have $2,300 left. So something very similar on this is probably, I would say, okay, I really want Kelsey, and now I got to save myself $1,000. Do I still want Hardman? At 4,800, he's kind of interesting. But if we look to Robinson, he is 1,800. That's a $3,000 savings from Hardman for arguably similar opportunity in production, right? Yes, the exciting play is going to be Hardman, but Robinson has been just fine. Now I can upgrade one of my kickers. Oh, let's give the tie to the hometown guy, and let's see what I can get for 5,300. I'd like to have a receiver with Josh Allen. So then now I've got Cole Beasley. All right, so that's not bad. So it's Mahomes, Allen, Kelsey, Robinson, Butker, and Beasley. So maybe I want to move Allen into the top spot, and then I can put Mahomes, and I still have $400. So I could play either kicker. Just $400 get me anybody at utility? Nope, it does not. But that would kind of be my moving parts in all of this. The extreme one, maybe I would think about changing Beasley if you're worried about him being hurt, going to Pringle, and then turning the kicker slot into John Brown. So maybe I like this one better. Josh Allen, Mahomes, Kelsey, Robinson, Brown, and Pringle. I know I'm throwing away that Pringle spot, but now I've got Josh Allen. I've got a dynamic playmaker that I know isn't hurt, even though Beasley was taken off the injury list. What do we do with that? So there we are. And they've both, Beasley and Brown, have each disappointed us with a 0 in the last 2 games. So, but those would kind of be my core lineups. I didn't feel super strongly on any of them. So usually I have a nice strong lean with where I want to go with my head-to-heads and 3-mans. I didn't this time. I think it's because there's so many options. Normally I say, here's the number 1 play, and then I build around that. Today, there could be 5. Yes, it's probably going to be one of the quarterbacks, but all it takes is one of the receivers to have 2 touchdowns, which they're all capable of doing, like literally all of them, because they have Patrick Mahomes as their quarterback, and Josh Allen does not play favorites. So it's more wide open. So I just said, I'm going to play mostly tournaments. What was your read on all of this?
Yeah, I kind of, I agree. And I like the idea that I strongly agree with you that even when you look at your cash lineup, you're definitely still playing a quarterback and captain. I wouldn't move off of that. You're tempted. You look at it and you say oh man, Travis Kelce feels so incredibly safe, yet we're going to get a ton of ownership on both of the quarterbacks, which is just generally always the case. I think there's a decent amount of leverage to be had just by capturing the 2 touchdown game from Tyreek Hill, capturing the 100-yard bonus and a touchdown game from Travis Kelce. If one of those two guys goes off, they're going to crush all of the other lineups. And we know they have incredible ceilings. So I do think that that's probably the approach I would take. It's especially typically the approach I take when we have quarterbacks who essentially aren't like Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson. Not that I don't think these quarterbacks have high ceilings, and normally even they have good rushing potential. Sans, now we don't believe we have that with Patrick Mahomes. But really the way that like an Allen lineup kills me, especially Allen, is that he spreads out. For Patrick Mahomes, like he is not, I mean, I know like they have guys who sometimes pop up with random touchdowns, but when you look at the touchdowns that we have for Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, their odds specifically of outscoring their own quarterback when their quarterback goes off seem pretty good. So I actually feel more confident that if I'm betting on the Chiefs and playing one of their two top options, I'm more likely to get that right than if I do that with Allen. Like that's almost part of the reason I'm not actually playing a ton of Bills, is because I feel like there are more viable options. I don't feel bad fading Mahomes if I still have him in the flex. I'm concerned that Allen throws one to Reggie Gilliam, one to Cole Beasley, and runs one in, and that's how he kills me. So I'm playing almost the favored team, obviously, with the Chiefs, but also the certainty they provide me with. Like they have a like two receiver system, one's a tight end, obviously, whereas we have such a crazy distribution of touchdowns for Buffalo that I'm not sure that I'm even capturing the right guys by just playing like even the bread and butter Josh Allen stack.
All right, so I'm going to do a read, but in the meantime, I'm going to ask you this question, and I want you to answer it when we're done. So I'm in my Survivor League. There's three of us left. It was $2,400. I convinced everybody to each take 500 so we don't get this far and get nothing. And then we're playing for the remaining, it's like 600 or $700, right? We're on such an old system. I don't know who they picked, right? I have the Chiefs now. I'm wanting to go with the Bills. One of them could have taken Green Bay. If Green Bay loses, it would be smart for me to take the Bills, I think, and go for the solo win. How would you play that? It's like door number one, door number two, and I can't quite figure out the math on it. But what you guys want to do is listen to any of our strategy shows or anything that's not live before lock. You can go to the Awesemo Podcast Network. It's available on all podcast platforms that you're used to. You can see it. You can still see it on YouTube. You can still see all of them on Twitch, but a lot of people like to have their stuff downloaded. They don't want to use up the data, etc. So all you got to do is sign up, to Podbeam or the Apple Store, or iTunes or Google Play or Spreaker, any of those things, and you've got the Awesemo channel in there. We have the main channel under which all of our shows come out, and then we have a couple sports specific channels for football and for NBA and for golf, because wait for it, we put out so many shows that people are only saving last five. Well, we're doing 6 shows a day. You're not going to get all of them. So what I like to do is I have the main one, and then I have the football one, and yes, it's the last part of the season, but then I like to listen to a lot of the football ones when I'm out walking the dog or doing errands on Friday and Saturday, etc. But check out the Awesemo Podcast Network. All right, back to you. Who do you think is going to win tonight?
I think it's the Chiefs. I think in that scenario, I still think you want to play the Chiefs. Like I think you would just be playing you're 40-60 to win, essentially. You're 40-60 to win it all, but your opponent still comes in 60-40 to win it all. Like I'm guessing if you just take the average, like the mean outcome is that you make essentially your EV is higher by playing the Chiefs one, especially if you think that
no, I'm just guessing. I'm just saying mathematically, one of the three probably took the other favorite.
Exactly. Yeah. You would think that your opponent's equally distributed there, given that both teams were 3-point favorites. You would think they equally distributed their choices between the two favorites. The one team the one person that played the Packers played the Packers team, played them as if they chose them, is probably dead right now. I mean, maybe not dead, but they're not looking great. But I still think if you're in a 50-50 with your opponent, like there's not, you don't capture a ton of upside by trying to play, like you're just drawing dead to win, not dead to win, but like you choose I just don't get why you choose the worst team essentially. Like your upside isn't like unparalleled. It's like 50% of, why would you take 40-60 of $100 when you can take guaranteed 50-50 of $100? The EV is 50 versus 40. You would just take 50 essentially is the best way to put the math into it. I'm struggling. It's a mind bender.
It's a mind. That's why I asked. I think it's a good thought exercise. So I'm going to drop this. This is the Odd Shopper page. It's for our breakdown of the Chiefs game, right? So it shows where all the line movement, it shows the wagering across multiple sites, it shows key stats, it tells you where the money's coming in, is it on which team, and the number of bets, volume, etc. It's showing, we were joking a little bit, but it shows the betting records, like straight up against the spread, over, under, on the road, stuff like that. You literally have everything you need. And then you can go all the way down to the bottom here and you can start to see player props for all the players. This is pretty nifty. We have this for every game. This is Awesemo odds, and you'll want to check this out. This is the Odds Shopper sister site there, but also Awesemo odds. We have a lot of wagering content in as well. So definitely want to check that out. Let's see. Any final thoughts as we wrap on up here?
If you thought your opponents were both playing the Chiefs, that's the scenario in which you play the Bills, because you have roughly a 40% chance to win, but you win $100. Where if you take the 60% chance to win, you take 1/3 of it. So that's where your odds pay off. If you thought that was like, if both of them were Chiefs fans, that's maybe the route you would take. But in the scenario, I assumed that they split their choices 50-50 between the favorites. You're not advantaged by playing Buffalo in that scenario, as I'm pretty sure how that would work out.
Right.
In terms of this game, I think the Chiefs are going to win. I think they put up points. I think both teams put up points. I just think one team puts up more points. I mean, generally is how games work out, is that one team puts up more points, especially when we have one team has to win. I'm predicting that to be the Chiefs. And I think their distribution is much more clean, where I think they have probably two top receivers, where Buffalo has one and then no clear number two. They have two guys that could be the number two, and even like their ancillary pieces, like no, I know I'm going to be cursed by saying this, no backup tight end for Kansas City is catching a touchdown. I can promise you that. I cannot make that same argument for the number 3 receiver for Buffalo, the number 4 receiver like Isaiah McKenzie, Gabe Davis. I can't make that same argument for the backup tight ends. For that reason, I think I'm more predictably capturing points by playing Chiefs and probably just onslaughting them and then leaving salary on the table. And I think that's how I'm going to try and build unique lineups.
All right. And then the main reason why I'm leaning towards the Bills, the last time I made it this far was the Super Bowl. It was the Patriots and Giants, and this was before DFS. So 12 people made it, and we all ended up picking the Patriots. And then it was closest score. And I don't want to go to closest score. That was just stupid. Now, had I been doing that in the DFS frame of mind, I would have gone with the Giants, just because mathematically there should have been, the way the odds were in that game, there should have been 2 people who chose the Giants, but nobody did. So that's where you get into a little bit of game theory. Because frankly, I was just like, how closest score? Really? That, like, I'd rather just have them draw my name out of a hat at that point. So
also, I didn't realize that this could go on to another round if you tied your opponent. You want to know what your opponent chose with this Packers game. You'd rather push your advantage one step further than making like a potentially dangerous move without knowing. So I think you'd rather wait until next week as well to find out. Then you can maybe just like, you get to revisit the situation again.
Yeah. So we'll see. I got an hour to think about that, but that's the fun stuff we look at. And this is where on I was just doing this because we had Kyle here and I thought it might be interesting for some of you guys to hear this, but you'll want to know that we talk about all this stuff in Slack too. And you can message any of our contributors, and we have very knowledgeable members as well. But this is kind of one of those brain teasers where I just wanted to hear some other opinions from people that are smart about this stuff and aren't emotionally invested in this like I am. So that was more of the clinical look. But hey, as sports wagering, now we got Michigan, now we got Virginia. More states are online to be online. It's a good time to start thinking about this sort of stuff. But we're going to get on out of here. So thank you to our sponsor, No House Advantage. Remember, we've got in 5 minutes NBA Live Before Lock with Eric Lindquist and Josh Engelman. And you can follow Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Tweets Here. I am at EMac DFS, and it is Awesemo_COM. With that, gamers, good luck.